Hey everyone, today we are looking at Psalm 131. It's a pretty short psalm. There's only 3 verses, but it's quite impactful. Here's how it goes. My heart is not proud, Lord. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me, but I have calmed and quieted myself. I am like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child, I am content. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, both now and forevermore. And that's it. What's this psalm about? Well, it's pretty simple. There's 2 verses that sort of talk about the same thing, about this idea of being content without knowing about the bigger things that God is up to. We see similar sentiments in Psalm 139, for example, when the author is talking about how God has created him, and he says this: You hem me in behind me and before me, you have laid your hand upon me, Lord. Such knowledge of how I came into being is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Job says something similar. When Job undergoes this great suffering, the whole book of Job is a crying out to God. Job, who has this deep love for God, is demanding God to show up and explain himself, and why someone who is so good and faithful can experience such despair and heartache and pain. And the whole book is Job wrestling with wanting God to show up and sort of give an answer to why this is happening. At the very end of Job, God does just that. He shows up and he asks Job a series of questions about, where were you when I laid the foundations of the world? Where were you when all of these big creative monumental moments happened? And God asked Job a bunch of questions, and here's how Job responds in chapter 42. He says, God, I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted. You asked, who is this who obscures my plans without knowledge? Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. This is what's happening in Psalm 131, that the author is saying that there are things that I'm sure I want to know, right? Why am I here? Why is this thing happening to me? What's going to happen in the future? Where are you while I'm suffering or going through this thing? How can this thing that I see eventually lead to good? Like those big, serious, philosophical, existential questions that we have. And the author here is saying that I understand that I'm very limited, that I have a very small capacity to understand the big things of God, who God is and why God does what he does and how things are all going to work out in the end. So instead of trying to wrestle and be angry and question God, instead I'm just going to be content, like a child with his mother, knowing that just a little bit of health and knowledge is enough for me. That I can sit back and trust God to run the universe, and I can simply be his child. And I can trust that God's plans are bigger and better for me, and even if I can't understand what he's doing or why things are happening the way they are, that I know that God's going to take care of me. And so the psalm ends by saying, so Israel, put your hope in this Lord, the one who can take care of us, whose ways are bigger than our ways, and know that he has got us in our hands. So if you are one of those people at these moments who are wrestling with the big questions of life, or wondering how any good can come out of this current situation or whatever, maybe what we need to do is do what this author is saying. To, instead of approaching God with just trust and anger, to sort of say, God, instead I know I'm your child. I know I can rest assured that you are going to take care of me. That even though I don't understand what is happening, you are good and you love me and your purposes will prevail. When we're able to do that, like Job, like the author of Psalm 139, we are given this peace that we can proceed through life with. So, I hope, as I learn from this psalm, that I can do just that. God, you're God, I am not, and that's okay with me.